The arrest of James Brian Chadwell in Lafayette. Let's talk about it, because I think a lot of people might reserve talking about it and just might be waiting to see what happens. But I just feel like I need to have a chat with you. So it's obviously not from any position of knowledge about psychology, criminology, anything like that. But I just want to talk about James Brian Chadwell and in relation to what everyone's going to want to talk about, and that is the murders of Abigail and Libby 4 years ago. So James goes by the name of Brian, and his Facebook is under Brian Chadwell and then Outlaw in brackets. Outlaw is actually his male pit bull dog, and he has a female dog called Angel. Yeah, Angel. And he loves his animals. He obviously relates really well to animals. He posts prolifically on Facebook, and I know that he has TikTok, and we all know what TikTok really is in the dark heart of it, and that is a pineapple's dream, if we could use Stephanie Harlow's term. Okay, so TikTok is exploited by pineapples and pineapple rings and all sorts of people who are predatory toward children. So we know that that is a fact. It's not just in my opinion, even though it is my opinion, that is just an absolute nightmare for parents. You know, and the openness of it as well compared to chat rooms and things. I mean, it's quite terrifying, actually. So, you know, Brian Chadwell, he's 42 years old. He's the person that was arrested in Lafayette a few days earlier. He had abducted a 9-year-old child, so this was an opportunistic crime. Whether or not he has seen this child around the neighborhood or not, he held this little girl in his home. She was found in his basement, so she was reported missing pretty quickly. Her mother noticed after 30 minutes that she hadn't seen her daughter. She called the police. The police did a door knock in the area and knocked on Chadwell's door, who admitted to seeing her earlier and then said he didn't know anything about it. They went back with a search warrant and I think they would have gone to get a warrant, I'd say. I'm not sure on that, but went back and then searched the home, found the little girl in his basement, and she had been beaten and abused, and she'd been bitten by one of his dogs. And the tragedy is that this motherfucker's dogs are going to suffer because they're going to be put down. They might have been in any sort of position there with this girl, and that dog is probably going to be destroyed. I don't know what American law is like that. I don't know if a rescue group is going to step in. But pit bull dogs get a really hard rap. It's the man that needs putting down. Anywho, so Lafayette, it's 18 miles from Delphi. It's less than a 30-minute drive, so it's southwest from Delphi. And you know, people are talking about James having been out of Iowa prison for 3 days prior to the murders of Abigail and Libby, and we do know that certain types of offenders, and I've talked about this, the difference between sort of, you know, with your factor 1 and your factor 2, psychopaths, for example, not that that is a diagnosis, it's personality traits, but you know, the calculating psychopath might be in prison for crimes lesser than what they have actually committed, and they'll be out sooner than you think. And they're not necessarily the ones that are going to go straight back in. Whereas your factor 2, what might be colloquially, I can't talk today, termed as a sociopath, you know, they have different traits altogether. They might have been in prison for a series of rapes. They will come out and it's likely that they just rape again. Okay, straight away. And there is differences here in the type of narcissism. A sociopath is not necessarily a narcissist, whereas a psychopath might actually have a diagnosis of narcissistic personality disorder as well, or at least have some traits of narcissism. Anywho, why am I digressing there? So what I wanted to talk to you about with regards to this is, well, let's look at his physicality. He definitely could fit the bill facially, although people who have been doing the facial imaging are going to say, well, they should be saying, look at his nose, it's not bulbous. He does have a lot of the things that people would say, hey, these are, you know, these recognizable markings and things, like the large ear plugs, which you can remove. It just leaves you with a drooping earlobe, a very long drooping earlobe that would look like it's got a slit in it. And he may not have had these 4 years ago. He has tattoos on his hands and on his knuckles. Now again, he could have got these at any later date. It's possible though that he had them put on in prison. And in the video we've got of the troll on the bridge, I think it feels like you can see a flash of hand on his left at his hip, and it does look all white. But again, you know, we don't know if these are hands, anything that we're seeing here. Other people agree with me, they do see sort of a left hand. So maybe there weren't tattoos on this hand to see, because again, surely the people doing the imagery enhancements would be pointing out things like hand tattoos if there was a hand visible. So just maybe there's not a hand visible. He's heavily tattooed all over. He seems very thick set to me, and he seems very thick in a way that doesn't seem to be disguised by this blue jacket, even if there are things stuffed in it here. I feel like his bulk would be different, but then again, I feel like his bulk would be more like the initial images that came out, which was, remember, this was him being shorter and squatter than he appears in the images released later, where the man looks quite lanky, except for, you know, bulk around his stomach area, the abdomen area. But to me, you know, bridge troll's bones look like they're sharp with some flesh that has either gone to pot, or you know, just the sagginess that's coming with a bit of age, or just being of poor physical type. And Brian James Chadwell is buff. He's got some bulk to him, and not only just you know, he does have that in the shoulders and this muscularity, this broad muscular sort of trunk. Whether or not he's gone to pot now since the photos that I've seen, but he's got that more youthful fitness that even if Bridge Troll had in one point of his life, he had certainly lost by the time he was filmed on the bridge. It just doesn't seem the same. But then again, Brian Chadwell is not a tall person either, and the collective we, the majority, you know, the people that aren't gunning for Ron Logan, because, you know, Ron Logan being well over 6 foot. It means that they need to see bridge troll as well over 6 foot. You know, the people that aren't, you know, stuck on this guy being quite tall and lanky and hiding things under a coat. I mean, I'm not sure about the physicality, but again, it is very compelling, and we don't know what condition this chap was in. He'd just come out of prison, and I think he would have been quite buff coming out of prison, if not chunky, on all that prison food, you know, the prison burritos that he mentioned on one of his February 14 posts. Well, it was on February 13th. Hey, you know, paychecks tomorrow, prison burritos all round. I don't know what sort of condition he would have been in, but I feel like his legs would have been much more chunky than the bridge guys, and indeed the bridge trolls, I mean, and they seem chunkier just in general. Again, I don't know. People are querying, well, is this what happened to Abigail and Liberty? Dog attack. Well, he would have, you can't miss a man with 2 beautiful pit bulls, I don't think, on the trails, even if he's entered in and out across the creek and never even walked on the actual 505 or 501. You know, it's such a big risk, and I don't know that he's taking his dogs out hunting, quote unquote, in that way. So I discount that. You know, he's been in and out. You know, he does have this rap sheet, but I guess what I wonder about is surely people in Carroll County have collaborated with other county law enforcement agencies to say, well, look, who would you want us to look at from your area? This person can obviously come in from your county. Who is on your radar? And I guess he'd only been released, maybe they didn't know, but maybe they would say, well, we've released these people recently. Isn't that part of the investigation? To me, that would be just a standard fare for an investigation. Is, you know, you'd think these types of characters would be known and looked at. They must be on the list of the 1,000 people that have surely been investigated. And who knows, have people prior to this been giving in tips about Chadwell? Maybe they have. But there's certainly lots of people that have been called in as tips other than Chadwell. And be interesting to see what police made of those tips versus a Chadwell tip if it's come in. You know, he mentions about, you know, no Valentine, no drama, things like that on Valentine's, but really I couldn't see anything that might be a bit queer around that time, although all throughout his Facebook page he's got a lot of posts that are hidden, that he's either made private or just posted to a private group, and they're probably a bit on the nose, even more so than some of his normal things that he's posting. He's been in and out of, say, rehab and things like that. And he certainly, and he wears his heart on his sleeve, what you could call a heart, I guess, you know. It's interesting, you know, he's been in and out of relationships. There's Gabby, there's Jennifer. He's been in and out of rehab, a place called Trinity. And he likes to talk about rights of children in such a way. For example, if I see some dude following a young girl into, you know, an amenities block, book my ticket to the slammer sort of thing, you know, as if, hey, I'm going to go in there and beat this fucker up. He seems to make all sorts of excuses. He's been in and out of a lot of jobs, sometimes, you know, maybe losing them because they're worried about his world outside of the home when he's turning up, beaten up. He's been in prison, things like this. And but you know, he posts, hey, look, I made this bed for a friend's child, isn't it cute? It's just out of pallets, it's all decorated. He says things about sticking up for children, things about, you know, raise children right because they can grow up to be the troubled people of today, you know, these drug abusers and these troubled young men and women who don't make good choices. Now, so yeah, I mentioned Trinity House. That was back in October 2019. It's in Kokomo. I think we're all aware now, following these cases, that you know, unfortunately, some small towns in the area that are plagued with drug addictions, and you know, people with drug addictions, and the crime and the illies and everything that comes along with that. You know, and part of what James Brian Caldwell seems to look for therapy is nature and his dogs, giving him sense of family. One post he wrote was, three's a crowd, six is a family. And so he's had that sense of being with a partner, having those animals together, and that's, you know, that's creating your family. And having that sense of calm from that, and being proud, and that sense of safety, and it obviously gave him the feels, you know. And then obviously his life has continued on in such a way where, you know, he has lost these things that have, you know, been precious to him. At one point, his ex-partner had his dogs. He now has Angel and Outlaw. I'm sure he's going to be deeply concerned about what's happening to these dogs. You know, and you have to think, okay, what is the modus operandi of someone who abducts a child opportunistically into their home to abuse, and thankfully was caught because, you know, remember little face fat lick and things, you know, children are killed very quickly. People that are abducted are killed very quickly. I mean, maybe this guy was going to turn into a Castro, Ariel Castro, who knows, but thank God, you know, the police, the mum, first of all, noticing her child wasn't around, calling the police doing the door knock, the police going back to the home, and the police finding this little 9-year-old child. So, you know, this guy, he's out into nature. People are making a lot around the bridges. I mean, well, you know, isn't it the bridges of Madison County? Isn't it the bridges of Indiana? You know, what you have there are waterways and bridges. So, you know, if I lived there, you know, I would be posting exactly the same. I'd be spending a lot of time at the waterways, going over the bridges, under the bridges, going out there with carnivore dog. You know, he's a loner, and he's a loner kind of like I am, and in the sense that I mean, it might not be such a choice for him as well, even though he seems to have, I mean, you know, he's got friends on Facebook, some of them are family. His mother is dead, and he misses his mother dearly. She's been dead now for 12 years. I'm not sure who else he's lost in his family that was important to him, but I feel like maybe his grandfather. And he's spending a lot of time just trying to find happiness around places. But yeah, he's certainly got some demons, hasn't he? And he's spending a lot of time out in nature. That's his therapy, he says. When, yeah, he could really do with a lot of therapy. You wonder about the support that people get when they come out of prison. I mean, the funny thing about prison is, okay, there's no harm reduction in prison. There's no harm reduction really to speak of across the board for people using drugs, for drug addicts and people who have these problems and might be criminals because of drug addiction, and they go to prison, and the party line is, well, there's no drugs in prison, so we don't have to do anything about it. And of course there are drugs in prison, and everyone's coming out of there with more mental illness, worse habits, with hepatitis, with, and what are they coming out into? Are they coming out into programs where they're getting help? And what about the rapists and the violent offenders? Well, maybe sexual offenders are getting help in prison, but what's happening when they come out? Are there programs for when they come out? And what sort of program is someone like a James Brian Chadwell coming into when they are set out free into society? When they're homeless, or when they are living in areas where perhaps they should be having some sort of social worker. Oh, yes, okay, right, yes. Anywho, because they should be monitored, and, they should be then on the radar as well for when crimes such as Delphi, Manon, Highbridge Trail murders occur. And they should be high on the list, and they could be checked out. So we don't know. We don't know if this has actually happened with Chadwell. If he's not, I mean, you would expect someone like him, he should be on the radar. He's still committing, he's still getting into trouble all these years later. And he's quite a prolific poster. He's not really going under anybody's radar. So I don't, I'm not sure. The thing, he's immature. He does seem to have obsessions, and he's obsessed with things like Halloween. He's obsessed with, obviously females and relationships, and, posts a lot of memes about these things. And he's that type of guy that is, that sort of that woman chaser, and that professor to that type of person professing to love women and loving a certain type of woman, but you really wonder what's going on there. The thing with the dolls, the strange dolls, okay, so there's a picture you've probably seen around. It's got a cat in it, and then these dolls that are kind of like morphed babies and cats. Now, some people really like these sort of things. I always find this sort of stuff really sick. It turns my stomach. They're just light, hilarious, and ludicrous and funny to some people, cute to others, or, sick and weird to other people. What that is I think why it tickled him is, so you've got these dolls that are sort of kind of like bald cats with these cat ears, but bare, and these funny curls of hair, and these very strange features, and a little cat sitting amongst them. And I think what tickled Chadwell about this is that he did have a Siamese cat at the time, it looks like, as part of this family of 6, and it's just probably tickled him on some level. I don't know if that's really anything to do with babies. The same thing is with, him being this loner as well. I do want to bring up the Lafayette Sex Club, which has been outed for quite a while by a young woman who she actually copied the content of somebody's device, maybe a laptop or an iPad, something like that. She actually took a copy of it so that she can now read it out to everyone later. And she was being talked about as a possible candidate, as a to be used as a sex toy in this Lafayette Sex Club. Would Chadwell be involved with anything like this, being a loner and having, what sort of things about his real life his real feelings is he actually sharing with people in his life? I don't think he is being open with things. I don't think he's sort of in this sex club thing. I don't think he's accepted by people. I don't think he's part of it. I don't know what I think this is part of his problem, is his struggle to be accepted. Although, you know, there's plenty of people on his page calling him cuz and bro, and he is with groups of people at times, and he's had his share of kind comments on there. Love this picture. You go, bro. Love that. Happy for ya. Neat one. Whatever, you know. Was it Papa John's Pizzas? Something about Papa John's Pizzas. But I think it was just a post about, hey, you know, Domino's was better. Something. I'm not sure. You know, the world will be waiting with bated breath, won't they? Because, you know, superficially, I mean, this scumbag, he is a scumbag. I think he feels like he's probably very misunderstood. Is he likely to commit a crime? You know, was he trying to get, if it's him, was he trying to get Abigail and Liberty away to a car? Was he trying to get them to abduct them? Because his abduction is, you know, kidnapping, I mean, and holding against will. Is that more his speed, other than actually slaughtering children out in a certain area? Is that what he was trying to do with the girls, rather than kill them on the spot? And did that kind of just go wrong? But then plenty of people don't think so. He looked like he was there to do, we don't know. No one knows, I don't think, except the perpetrator, I guess. But, you know, was he there to do the deed, or was he there to kidnap? You know, I think he had a gun, and, you know, could Chadwell get a gun? I mean, I haven't looked at all his posts, and would he mention that? But he seems to mention everything else, you see. He seems to be quite, although, you know, this could be in one of his hidden posts where he has obtained a weapon. Again, I think, you know, police, surely they have police that look for this sort of thing as part of an ongoing investigation, although it takes a lot of manpower and hours. But they've had 4 years to see, well, what type of people are in the area, what type of people are getting up to no good. And they've had their sticky mitts on him enough, where surely they could have interrogated him about things, or sort of chased up where he was. So, you know, I guess what I'm trying to say is, okay, sure, I can accept that this might be him, and I can see how it could be. He certainly fits the bill. But my gut tells me no. It just tells me no. I mean, because there's more than one utter scumbag around this world, isn't there? But, you know, the compelling things are that he had just gotten out of prison. We know that certain types of perpetrators, they go straight for it again, don't they? And since then, though, you know, he's had a couple of relationships, and I don't know why they've broken up. But they don't seem to be accusing him of anything, and certainly, would they have gone to the police, Gabby and Jennifer? One of them, I think, has a daughter, young daughter. Would they have gone to the police and said, hey, I think you need to look at this guy? So would he have been apprehended already? Would we be aware of him already prior to now, prior to him committing what I think is an opportunistic crime? Yeah, look, that's 30 minutes. It's long enough. I really just felt like I wanted to have a chat to you about it. I like to sometimes just talk things out. It doesn't mean I have a belief one way or the other. Yeah. What do you think? What do you think about James Bryan Chadwell, the outlaw? Let me know and I will speak to you later. Bye.